So Cheryl Williams, so
Yeah,
nice to meet you. It really is.
to meet you as well.
Now you come from Bree, who works for Biddy and Bose,
Correct.
but she also works on projects for Shine Project Foundation. There's a run or something.
Yes, so we just connected recently, and I want to say in the last maybe 4 or 5 months. Um, so a little bit about myself. I'm a special education teacher. I teach in Carlsbad, North County, San Diego, and
Lovely, lovely
yeah,
city. Yes.
very, very beautiful home. And we started the nonprofit, the Shine Project Foundation, in 2015.
Oh,
Um, Fast forward to
really fast forward. Yeah, 10 years later.
yeah, last year I happened to be visiting my brother in Charlotte and came across Biddy and Bose. And I was just inspired and overjoyed to see something amazing as this shop. And have you
Yeah,
spent much
so we
time
have
or do you
one
know
in,
anything about that?
well, no, so I didn't know there was a Biddy and Bose coffee shop slash little restaurant cafe in Pittsburgh, where I'm from. Now I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I've lived here for many years, but I'm from Pittsburgh. And my nephew, who is featured in the show, and he's in the banner of the site, he was telling me that there's a Biddy and Bose in downtown Pittsburgh, which I didn't know and I have to go to. And I think it's super cool how this company has proliferated to
Yes.
franchise itself out to, I don't know, 20 something, 15, a
Yeah.
lot.
Yes.
How did you like that experience?
It was, I mean, just walking in, I have a passion for working with children with special needs. I work with the moderate to severe population and at the elementary school, and it was middle school level. So, that's a very big part of who I am in my life. And, I think my purpose, walking into there and just being greeted by an individual with special needs and then looking around and kind of seeing that like the whole shop was curated to provide this access for this community. I was just in tears, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I want to figure out how I can connect with this great organization, this business. And being that my brother, had lived there for a few years and was um he had started a run club. He was new to the area, and so he took on running and created this amazing community run club. It kind of just clicked for me. I thought about, like, you know what, we need to figure out some way to connect with this business to be able to create access within the community and create something for Charlotte and for the families of Charlotte. And so I just threw it out there. I think I just DM'd them and or somehow got connected to the owner, which is Amy and Vic.
That's right.
Incredible people.
Yep.
And and I posted it to my brother, and he's like, yeah, that would be cool, sure. And so I kind of did the legwork to make the connections. And as a franchise, they have to get approval from corporate.
Right.
Like, okay, well, if this works out, great. If it doesn't, at least we can be here to support you, and I can promote you in any way I can. And yeah, we got the green light to go ahead and create this event, which is last year was the first in Shine Fun Run, and it's just an all inclusive community event for families.
Where,
And
Cheryl, where was it? Was it in
it was in
North
Charlotte,
Carolina?
North Carolina.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
and, we had families come out. We had a lot of the running community come out, which was great. What's incredible about, Charlotte is it's a small town, big feeling, but it's, very inclusive, it's very supportive. The way that the city's laid out, that there's this rail trail, And that's where my brother was doing his run clubs. And so we were like, well, let's, make it a Shine Fun Run where it could just be like a 1, 2, 3 mile option, and basically anyone could go. And the way that the rail trail is, it is accessible for everybody. And
So apparently, Shine Project Foundation was already in existence. So
yes.
this is after 2015.
Oh, yes.
And
Yes.
you just did like a little branding. You took the name of the project and got awareness for your mission, which we'll talk about more in a second, uh, on the completely different coast.
Yeah. And we've actually, interestingly enough, when we started the nonprofit in 2014, this was right before my husband and I decided to take a leave of absence. He's also a teacher. He was
Hmm.
a dual immersion teacher in Encinitas. And we kind of reached a point in our careers and in our lives where, we needed to reset and refocus. So not only did we decide to start a nonprofit, we decided to take a leave of absence, pull our kids out of school, take the biggest road trip of our lives, and drive in a camper van with a large yellow lab and 2 kids to Costa Rica. So we drove from San Diego, and prior to that, we actually had a small private fundraiser to just raise some money, to be able to get some school supplies. But in the back of my mind, because Costa Rica is a big part of our lives and we own property.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to find the special needs families, and I wanted to figure out a way to get them to the beach. And so, long story short, we make it all the way through Central America to Costa Rica. And once getting to know the community, I really was on a search to figure out where the special needs families were. And we started going to a local church, kind of just was asking around. Turned out one of the board members, her son had Down syndrome. And so I just introduced myself and I said, hey, we're a nonprofit. We're new. We've been coming to this area for a long time, but it would be incredible if we could get the families together and get them to the beach, get them surfing, and just create a beach fun day for them, something that's accessible, something that, most people have the, privilege of doing on a daily. And
Hmm.
so we made it happen. So before let's see, I think it was around May 2015, we rallied the community, and this was the first time the community got together, which is primarily expats. So people
Right.
kind of
So
just
so I understand.
it's just like people kind of do their own thing, but it's not necessarily a community. So this was the first time, I was like, hey, we need all hands on deck. We've got something, amazing that we're going to do for the community and for these, special needs families. And we'd love for your participation. And we had the local restaurant. We had a bus come out and get families from, inland that have never been to the ocean. We had, individuals and children that really lack the resources and support for any kind of therapy, and so we got them out. We created this amazing day. We had a bunch of surfers, getting them on the surfboards. We had, doctors and lifeguards, and yeah, it was just an incredible day to celebrate these families. And then once we returned to Carlsbad in July 2015, my brain is already turning of like, all right, let's do this here in our hometown. And I connected with some friends who own a local surf shop, and we made it happen at Moonlight Beach in Encinitas. And it's been like, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah.
So from there, um, we decided to branch out because it's not just about the beach, but it was really about enrichment. It's really about access to the community and just providing that connection. And so
And networking. If I
yes,
read correctly, I like that you have that focus that First of all, it's a family affair.
Yes.
When you have a special needs neurodivergent person, it is a family affair.
Oh, very much.
It should not, but it does a lot of times
Yeah.
fall on one person,
Right.
typically mom, but it is a family affair because everybody needs to understand how to contribute to the special needs person's life. But also, what I was reading about you was the focus is also on the caregiver. So, slash the caregivers,
Hmm.
because the caregivers need support and help too, right? Like if
Yes.
you have, I know too many people that have a child, has a child that really requires a lot of management during the day. Now,
Mhm.
as they grow up, they may need less, but while they're growing up, they need a lot of management. And so what happens, I think, is the parents are stressed out beyond belief.
Mhm.
And if they naturally say, I don't know if I can take this anymore, then they feel guilty. But
Mhm.
it's natural to be stressed out.
Of course. I mean, they are in a position where, their sole focus is their child or, their family member, that requires, additional supports to be able to thrive.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
like that you use that word too. Okay, so I need clarity. I'm
Yes.
reading through some things, Cheryl. I printed out the pages of the website. So here we have on the very first page, creating inclusive communities for special needs families. You
Yes.
stress family all the time.
Yes.
So I
Well,
like community and inclusive. Go ahead.
so, when we started, it was all about the child, but as we progressed in supporting the children through our events, it was really about supporting the families. When we have our events, as you had mentioned, it is a family affair, and the focus, yes, of course, is the child. However, what we need to consider is that you know these children, these individuals, that they're not alone. They have their family. They have to be there. So, kind of taking that into consideration, they need as much support as the child that's him or herself.
I
And
love that you're saying this. Keep
so
going.
when we were thinking about like the events that we were doing, it was primarily enrichment. But one of the things that I always took into consideration and thought was really important, and that even if, say, for example, we do a field day or a discovery arts day, so we get them exposed to different enrichment. We have peer volunteers that are there to promote that engagement and social and natural interaction. It was just as important to have adult volunteers, community volunteers, resources that the parents could connect to and have that, authentic connection with the mind of you know, it's, it's a whole support network that we are creating and providing that access to. And so from there, it kind of just led to creating these Caring for Caregivers event. And one of the first ones that we did was we partnered with a local salon and we just did New Year, New You. And they offered, what was interesting is that this salon based in Carlsbad, it turned out, the owner had a daughter with autism, and, I probably one out of three people know someone with autism or is neurodiverse or special needs. So everyone is really impacted by, special needs. And just knowing that she wanted to give back, and she shared her story, and that's what it is. It's having those stories that are shared with others that build that community, that build that connection.
Yeah.
And it was really powerful, just to have an opportunity for these moms, and I think we had 6 moms, to just take time for themselves, to feel pampered, to have that respite, to just get centered and just be taken care of. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is what moms need, caregivers need. And then we kind of started branching out and curating real special events for the caregivers, not limited to to one parent, a mom, or whatever. It's just obviously whoever can get there and
Right.
participate, how challenging it can be for, both parents to leave, since there's such a lack of respite care. And
So true. No, no, so true, so true. You
yes,
know, yes, I also know enough people that don't have qualified people coming in to
right.
give them a break. But I just uploaded an interview last week, uh, April 7th, 9th, April 9th, with my friend Jennifer Navarro, who I
Mhm.
met because her office was on the same floor in my office building. And as we connected on reality shows, but then we started talking, and out of her 4 children, her youngest, Noah, is 8 and has autism. And
Mhm.
he had all the normal signs. At 2.5 years old, the speech function
Yeah,
delayed and went away. And then physically, he started behaving differently because your mobility changes. And she actually worked at a business that was a probate business for special needs trusts and conservatorships.
wow,
But
awesome.
what she was saying, one of the things to your point of parents need pampering, to your point of that, she was saying that her husband and her, she's been married 26 years, that she and her husband do a date night. I don't know whether it's every week or every other week,
Hmm.
but they find that it's very important to reconnect
Hmm.
because it's a lot of work.
Hmm.
And her child, there's so many different levels, Cheryl. There's so many different levels of autism and
Oh yeah,
some other things. And so some are more severe, some are less severe. And I guess Noah's kind of in the middle only because it's the speech function that separates him.
right.
And the speech function is part and parcel of what's going on in the brain. And maybe it's too noisy.
Hmm.
Maybe what he's hearing is too jumbled. Therefore, can't really participate. Anyway, point being, that's not where I'm going. I'm going back to parents need support, your original point. And they do. Parents need to take time for themselves.
Hmm.
And you
Yes.
can easily get divorced. This could easily
Oh,
cause a divorce if you don't do that, right?
yeah. When we did our very first event in Costa Rica, um, and it may have changed, over the course of 10 years, but a lot of cultures, if a child has special needs, a lot of times mothers are left, to tend to the child, and the father is, not is absent. And it's hard. It's hard, for having 2 parents, trying to figure that out. So
Yeah.
these events also really culminated with um, the importance of really teaching self-care
Yeah.
and wellness and their ability to thrive. Because if they can't thrive, from the start, then their children aren't going to be able to thrive. Like
Yeah.
you can't fill someone else's cup if your cup is empty. And so,
Point.
yeah, so we've partnered with some great businesses to, curate these events that really focus on mindfulness and self-care, self-help tips. We've gotten some great facilitators to provide yoga and mindfulness and meditation and breathing and even sound baths and sound healing. And, I think given that brief amount of time, an hour, 2 hours that they're with us, they can just detach and let go and kind of come back to themselves and remember, like, I'm worthy of taking care of myself so that way I can continue to take care of others in my family.
It's
And so
actually
that's,
quite important to do.
oh, very much.
Beyond even worthy, yes, worthy, don't feel guilty.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to, or you'll get sick.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
really will get sick.
Mhm.
Um, on a separate note, Cheryl, do you do puppy yoga?
No. I've
Have
heard
you
of
heard,
not puppy. I've
girl?
heard goat yoga. I've heard llama yoga, but not puppy.
Okay, girl. So Laughing Frog Yoga Studio in Santa Monica.
Oh my
I
gosh.
have attended two of their yoga classes. One is puppy yoga and
Uh-huh.
one is goat yoga. And in
Uh-huh.
both cases, I mean, they're little baby goats.
Yeah.
While you're sitting there on the mat doing the moves, and it's actually a good yoga teacher. So it's not extremely difficult, but
Yeah.
you have a workout. So, but while this is going on, the puppies and the goats walk
Oh
on
my
you and
gosh.
walk
That's
under you and around you. And the very first thing you have to do when you get there is you have to sign a waiver that if they eliminate on you
yes.
or bite something, you're
Yeah.
not going to care. And they're like, we're all like, sign me up, sign me up. Nobody cares. We're
Yeah.
here. We're here.
Yes.
So I just pass that along to you. That would be an interesting feature, the puppy yoga.
Oh my gosh, for sure. We might have to contact them and create a little event, you and
Oh
I.
my God, that's right. You're the
Yeah, why
connector. You're Miss Connector. So am I. I'm happy to connect.
not? All right.
Okay. All right. So I need clarification on some
Right. Yeah.
things. Together we make a difference, reading from the website.
Yes.
Together we make a difference. The Shine Project Foundation, public, nonprofit, 501c3, bridges the gap. We aim the goal, bridging the gaps between families with their children's, teens, and young adults who have special needs and local communities by partnering with businesses and organizations to provide special enrichment events and inclusive opportunities. Now, I'm thinking that this whole wonderful thing shows families how their children can be integrated into a community, right?
Mhm.
Getting rid of that concern and worry that we have to keep them in the house forever.
Right. That is correct.
And the whole family, if they participate, will meet other families.
Yes.
And now you have that mutual support network that they
Mhm.
can call each other after the event is over, right?
Yes, that's the idea is that, like, not only are they meeting other special needs families, they're meeting the parents of volunteers, peer volunteers, and just having that connection, being able to, talk, maybe something not related to special needs, just about, like, their own interest or whatever, anything. That's really important, and that's that connection, that's that community, and it's through our events that we kind of create that path and that
Opportunity.
yeah, that opportunity just to get the families out. And our events are really curated in a way that there's plenty of support. Um,
The
yeah, there's
getting the families out. So I'll just go back to using my nephew John as an example. He was the middle child. So my sister had separated them by 2 years, her three children. So John was the middle child. And everything was okay until like age 3. And then he started changing, and the development was different than the brother and the sister. They go on to school, and then my sister realizes no, he needs a special school.
yes.
So she does that. But then what happens is when we people get to be of the age that we, first of all, know more than our parents. So
Mhm.
therefore, we are out and about with our friends, and we don't really want to go many places with our parents. But that child, the special needs child, is left at home,
Mhm.
And certainly after graduation from high
Mhm.
school, when that social network that you get from school disappears.
Mhm.
And then I remember, Cheryl, that my sister said that she tried to get other mothers. She was a very involved mom. So she
Mhm.
tried to get other mothers of the kids that she knew that her son was friends with in school to provide social events,
Yeah.
to
Mhm.
provide networking, to provide activities. And yes, they would have to drive them, but so what? At least the kids get out and about. She said it was incredibly difficult
Yeah, it
to
is.
motivate. Tell me, so address that then.
So, yes. So, in my experience having the events, I know how difficult it can be to get your child out the door, your family out the door. So, it's one of those things that when I go into my events, sure, I'd love to have, maybe 20 families, but I can't expect that. So, I go into it only with the open mind of that if we can get one family out and we have 4 times the amount of volunteers, that's 4 times the amount of support and love and, access that family will have. So, and we've had cases like that. For example, we had a parents' night out, and this family came 2 hours away because they said free parents' night out, 2 hours, childcare, peer volunteers. We partnered with a couple different restaurants that gave discounts so they could go into Carlsbad Village and have a nice little evening. And it was just like, I don't know, there must have been like 15 volunteers and 3 boys. But yeah, they got all the love, they got all the attention, they got all the support they needed to
Why
just.
is it hard though, Cheryl? Why is it hard to motivate parents
I think
to?
they're exhausted,
Hmm,
and there's honestly, as a special educator and working in the public schools, like I myself feel exhausted because there is not enough appropriate supports in place, and meaning like paraprofessionals. And that's just something that unfortunately we have to deal with. And then for parents, they deal with that on a daily, and especially like when they're having to, take care of appointments and therapies and all of that. Like, you know, it's just that there's not enough support and funding to really, I guess, make it worthwhile to get people trained and
hmm,
stay in that field.
hmm.
So that, that's something, that's, has been on the back burner that we would love to, push out eventually with the appropriate funding is to have that, in this case, enrichment support. So that way, a child that wants to take karate, we could just like pair them up with a support provider and then they can just take a karate class. They want to take an art class, all right, we've got, this many hours because we got this much funding to,
Okay.
yeah, so it wouldn't come out of pocket because we've raised the money to be able to provide that. Um, yeah, there's just not enough support. And yeah, it's taxing and it's emotionally draining and it's just a lot. And if there are no supports in place or relief, then, it's really hard to kind of step out that door to want to access this amazing. But on the flip side, I've had many families travel from many miles to say, you know what, this is free. And, there's tons of nonprofits that do similar kinds of things. But that gets filled up really fast because myself and my husband, we teach full time and we run the nonprofit full time. Like my
Oh, you
energy,
still teach?
I teach full time. Yeah, we
Wow. Okay,
both
you
teach
went back to
full.
teach. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've taught the entire time, and
Wow.
it
Oh,
just
wow.
became, this passion project. I felt in my career as a teacher that I could only do so much to serve my students and make that time with them meaningful. Yes, of course, reading and writing and all of that is important. But when I looked at my students and their needs and their like them as a whole picture, as an individual, like what if I were to have a child, what would I want my child to have in their life? I just want them to be happy. I want them to have access. I want them to have friends. I want them to do fun things and creative things. I want them to be in nature. So that's what kind of pushed me to really want to start the nonprofit, is to give that access. And back to having parents come out, it really kind of is word of mouth, because we're pretty small in terms of like reaching families. We've served a lot of families here in North County, but I don't have the manpower or bandwidth to be able to really promote it on social media. I do what I can.
It's a job, and it's a job unto itself. The
Yeah,
social media piece. I mean, I'm feeling it myself. It's a
yeah,
job unto itself.
yeah,
But
and
wait a minute, I want to say something. Siblings. So, we talk about a lot about the parents because parents obviously raise their children, but siblings.
yes, so the siblings is an important part too. They're just as important. And so even though the events are curated for special needs, it's more about the family. So when their siblings come, which is highly encouraged to bring the family, they get to participate as well. But one of the things that we have been thinking about in terms of having that support is really developing and curating some events specifically for them. And I've come across a few different organizations. I can't think them off of the top of my head, but I've seen a couple organizations where they just do straight up like siblings only. Like they have a celebration.
Oh, really? Okay, I haven't run into that
Yeah.
yet.
So if I find it,
Please
I'll have to
do.
share that, because that's a great resource, and they really make it very special for them, because siblings take on a lot.
Well,
And
siblings take on the future. I
yeah,
mean, if nothing
yes,
untoward happens out of
right.
the
Hmm.
regular routine, the siblings will survive the parents. And
Hmm.
so they need to be ready. And so here's what I've found, and I'm just passing this along to you because you're constantly doing reach outs with people. What I have found in this community of professionals serving the special needs neurodivergent community, the energy, the positive energy, the
Hmm.
love, the emotion, it's so uplifting.
It
You're
is.
not ready for it until you open up and join and include yourself in some of these different communities that I think the siblings need to understand, or to be shown, if they could just put any kind of uh whatever walls are up aside, or anything aside, preconceived notions, they're going to be in for a wonderful experience. It's
Yeah,
a happy community. There's no sadness.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah,
And don't we need that all right now?
yes, for
I
sure. I
I
mean,
think we do.
yeah, one of the things that kind of came to mind in terms of like creating this nonprofit, it was just like creating a feeling. And like kind of that's how the Shine Project came about. First it was, like, oh, I love the name and the word shine, but that was taken. And then Shine Project, and that was taken. And so Shine Project Foundation wasn't taken.
Ah, okay, very
Yeah, so
good.
that's how we got our name, but it was really about the feeling, the feeling that you get when you thrive and you feel good and you're supported. Um, I get that every single time we have an event, and I can just see it. Like I know the joy that I feel when I work with children with special needs, and I have interactions with the families, but it's even more so for the individuals that don't have any special needs, the volunteers that are there and providing outreach and support, that you see it and feel it in them that, they're thriving beyond what they could have ever imagined by volunteering and working with someone with special needs. So it's really,
Without a doubt. My nephew John
mhm,
got a job a year or so ago at the VFW. The
mhm,
VFW stands for Veterans of Foreign Wars, and they have these social places, so buildings called the VFW Hall. And so there was one in the neighborhood where my nephew lived with his mother. He's now living in an apartment. He's in his second month, which is working out rather well.
awesome.
Anyway, so I was back in Pittsburgh in July of last year, and I said, I want to go. I want to go to the VFW. I want to see what this place is like. I want to meet these people. They were lovely people. They extended themselves employment-wise to him, so he was employed there. It just happened to be his night off, the night I went. He goes there first before my sister got home from work. I waited for her and then we drove together. And we saw him in action.
Hmm.
We saw him connecting with everybody. So, A, he was accepted.
Yeah.
So that laid the foundation. He was accepted by this community of people. Number two, although his job was dishwasher, again, he wasn't working that day, but his job was dishwasher, great, foot in the door. And he looked around and he said to the manager, well, I'd kind of like to be a waiter, but I can't read or write very well. And so she steps up and takes all the food items on the menu, creates this larger one sheet version of
That's
pictures
awesome.
only,
Yeah.
pictures, laminates it, gets one of these pens, markers,
Yeah.
and she says, okay, so you go to the table and you give them this menu and you tell them, I mean, it's obvious,
Yeah.
when you look at him, but it doesn't matter. He's very charming.
Mhm.
And you tell them to please mark off the
I
food
love it.
item.
It's brilliant.
I mean, and then, the manager did the money portion, keyed it to the register, he served. It was so what I wanted to say was his energy was different.
Yeah. He
He
was proud
was
of himself.
so, yes, he was
Mhm.
so up and positive. And then he gives the bartender a 15-minute break. He can't mix drinks, but he
Yeah.
can open a beer and
Right.
do sodas. So he was doing that. I took video. And I thought, this is amazing. And my sister looks at me and says, why do I feel so weird? I said, because you've never seen him this happy. You don't
Yeah.
know how to process this.
Yeah.
She said, no, you're
Mhm.
right.
Well, I think that's really important that businesses recognize like that potential, like that unlimited like willingness to work. What's really ironic is that, you give them opportunity to work what most people would think is a mundane job. They take pride in that, and they will do it to a T, which is probably a lot better than some of the employees that they do have. But it's a matter of educating the businesses, um, and really providing awareness and training to help support the special needs population, especially the ones that are employable. One of the things that we are working on, one of the initiatives we have, is our Shine Certified Community Partner Program. And it's not on the website, where our website's
Okay.
kind of still in progress. But this came about because, one of the families that I partner with, she helps me to put on our field day event. Her son has graduated. Well, he's in the adult transition program now. But like you had mentioned earlier in the conversation, um, you know, he has an older brother that gets to go into the community, gets to go downtown, and like,
Drives.
yes, and has that experience that like for this teen, um, that's not accessible to him. Like, just to be able to maybe go with a friend or go with a peer, you have that level of like fear that he's
They'll be
not.
taken advantage of.
Yeah,
They won't be able
exactly.
to
Yeah,
function.
exactly. So, knowing that, her desire is she wants her son to go to downtown to be able to be like, hey, how are you? And people know his name, people know him, and that's his community, and they're looking out for him. And it just made me think business don't know otherwise, unless, and it's not their fault, but if they were given the
Great.
tools, they were given the strategies, they were given, you know the opportunity to learn, that will only enhance their business. That will only bring more revenue, because now families that have special needs can come to these establishments because they feel safe and supported and are welcomed. So with the Shine Certified partnership, it's all about connecting with the local businesses. We're starting here in Carlsbad to start with. We actually have our first business that we're going to certify, and it's a
What is it?
simple.
What
Um,
is it, Cheryl?
it is called Senior Grubbies, and they're a wonderful, amazing business in Mexican restaurant. But
Okay.
the owner, Justin Chakura, he does so much for the community, and he was willing to make his business better by being able to have this certification, but learn more, because then he can support more. So
Correct.
it's a
Yep.
win-win for everybody.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so we are in the process of, getting his staff trained. One of the coolest things also, with what is happening is that, I'm not sure if you're familiar with IBCCES.
Well, it
And
was on your website. I was going to ask you, what does it mean?
yes, so that is the official autism certification for cities, to become a destination.
Oh
I'm
my
messing up
God.
like the
A destination for autistic people to come and visit and
yes,
enjoy?
yes. So I
Wow.
believe,
Oh my.
maybe I know there's a city in central or northern California that became the first city to become a autism destination city, and they went through this IBCCES certification process. It's pretty rigorous because there are so many things that need to be in place and people need to be trained. So it's a long process, but ultimately, Legoland is autism certified, and so their employees have been trained in terms of how to best support. And that's somebody that you should probably interview and talk to.
Well, yes, I was just saying, let me write this down, please. Legoland, because
Um,
my other nephew from a different sibling loved Legoland. They could
yeah.
build it. And I always thought, God, I really should go down there, do that, the zoo, the water
So
park thing. Keep going. This is
yeah,
great.
I believe there's, I don't know if it's Dubai itself, but somewhere in Dubai is also a autism certified destination city. So this process is definitely, making its way within communities and cities, and people are becoming more aware and understanding of, like, this is a need. This is, yeah, there are lots of needs in the world, but this is like a need within our community that is often overlooked. So,
Okay, and I'll tell you, the numbers are growing. The
oh,
numbers are growing. So, reading all these different things, different people, what do they do? But I had to do research. I needed numbers. And the first piece of research I did over a year ago was 33%. This is from the CDC
yeah,
website, which may not even exist now. God only knows. But when it did exist,
yes.
um, 33% of American families have special needs kids.
Hmm.
That's a third.
Yeah.
It's a
Hmm.
third of the population. That's huge. And then this article came to me last earlier this week, and I'm waiting for this woman to get back to me, Dr. Sherry Corbett. And her thing was autism diagnoses soar, understanding the explosion in autism spectrum disorder. And I have been questioning, why is at least autism growing by leaps and bounds, but I bet ADHD and
Oh
ADD
yeah.
are right behind it. And all I could think about was, well, the population is growing. And if this
Mhm.
is generational, then yeah, the disorders are growing
Mhm.
too with the population. All the more reason why, things like the Shine Project Foundation are extremely important as a connective tissue
Mhm.
to keep the community together so that those 33% of the families don't feel ostracized.
Right, for sure. One of our other initiatives that we're rolling out is a program called Food to Grow. So it's really important, as an educator in my experience, I've seen what my students eat. Now, I know food can be very aversive,
Oh,
and it's probably the last of the priorities,
never
for
thought about it.
and I have seen the correlation with what they're eating and how they process, you know, their surroundings and information and what is happening to them. And I feel that what we eat makes a huge impact on our ability to thrive because of that mind, brain, and gut connection. Like what you put into your body as fuel will determine how you grow. And I'm working with a holistic chef, and her goal is to
Wow.
really educate, you know, community. And so we've aligned in that I want to do that same thing for special needs families, is just kind of introducing the importance of eating healthy, sustainable, organic foods. I know it's not accessible at times. However,
Some
there,
is anywhere.
yeah.
Some of that is accessible everywhere.
Yes. So, there, like you said, there are so many organizations that are out there that can give produce boxes. So, I mean, I have children that eat goldfish all day. There's no, they drink Gatorade.
Soda,
They
Gatorade.
eat, like things out of a package. And we know from research
And
that
not that Gatorade is horrible, don't want to say that, but you can have a steady
yeah,
diet. A steady diet of anything
yes.
isn't good.
Yes. And so, I have kids that, really are in excruciating pain out of nowhere because their body's trying to process what they've eaten. So you imagine if you go and eat fast food, you kind of feel lousy afterwards. But imagine eating that for every single meal. Like you have no raw veggies or fruits, you have no fiber, you have no vitamins and minerals that replenish your body and your cells and your brain. That what it does to your gut and what it does to your ability to just kind of be. That's where you kind of see that increase of kind of like anxiety or like the inability to self regulate. And so, we just want to educate families by creating an experience where we do, whether they don't have to eat it, but like explore like foods. And, we're partnering with a local regenerative organic farm so they can see where food comes from. Real food does not come from package.
Can we see where goldfish come from?
It's amazing that, children, some children don't even realize that French fries come from a potato, you know?
Okay,
Um,
this is frightening, but Cheryl, let me tell you something, how brilliant this is, what you're saying. So, Americans are
mhm.
completely overweight. I mean,
Yes,
I'm overweight,
yes.
but the obesity level is out of like 68% of Americans now are overweight.
Mhm.
And COVID, we saw if you know, as we saw the pictures of people in hospitals during COVID, most of them were overweight. And
Yeah.
so obesity contributed to
Mhm.
them catching COVID, not being able to fight it off. Their immune systems weren't ready for that level of sickness to come in. And so now you're going to the special needs kids, if they don't have exercise, if they don't have a normal routine of walking, bicycling, doing all of that stuff, um, and have poor eating habits, yeah, not only will they be obese, and many are, and then the video games, the sedentary lifestyle that you have as your alternative if you're not active and busy, combined with the eating is just a recipe for bad health
Yeah,
and
and it
bad thinking.
right, exactly, and so that's why we decided that we want to push this out to communities, and we can do it in a fun way. We have hands-on activities where, like, for example, we had our first food to grow event at the farm in Encinitas, and they got to paint signs for the vegetable gardens, and then they got to harvest some stuff, and then we made dirt pudding, but we use avocados and cacao, and we use maple syrup. And, it's just exposing them to food in such a way that is playful, um, creative, but not forced, but also tastes good. And through that experience, educating the parents so that they understand, like, yeah, you say that your child doesn't eat, he only has a certain diet and it's of goldfish or orange chicken or whatever. um you can make subtle changes for things that really taste good.
Yeah.
And there are companies out there that um again, it's that food insecurity, that's that food. um
You
you
know
know
what it is? It's from the 50s when industrialization took
yeah.
over and we had cereals with sugar in them because that stimulated the appetite and
Mhm.
people wanted to eat more. The manufacturing of
Mhm.
processed foods
Yeah.
started proliferating in the
Oh, for
50s.
sure.
And then with the advertisements,
Mhm.
on television and then all media,
Mhm.
that became the life
Mhm.
to eat that way as opposed to fresh, whole cooked foods.
Yeah.
Okay, so question now. Now that I know you will not only work within the Southern California community, because Carlsbad is what, Northern San Diego
Yes.
County?
Yes.
Okay, it's Northern San Diego County, and that's the last county before you go into Mexico. And Ensenadas is kind of the last city
Yeah.
before you cross the border and go into Mexico. Okay, so you do stuff there, but then we started out talking by the connection between you and me was from Biddy and Bo's on
Yes.
the East Coast, and you put a run together. So
Yes.
my thinking is, especially with this food thing, you could be joining festivals around the country.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would love to. I just need to stop teaching.
So you need a corporate sponsor. That's what
Yes,
you need. You need a
ma'am.
corporate sponsor so that
Yes.
you can do all these wonderful
Oh
things.
my gosh. I would hit the ground running if I could get a corporate sponsor to be behind our initiatives, to really make an impact and get that support for families. Um, you know, that is so fulfilling. And it's really amazing when you see that in action, and the nonprofits that are out there making that change. But our special needs family needs support. And working on Camp Pendleton, I deal with a lot of all military families. So not only do they have military experiences and that they have to go through. They have children, like multiple children with special needs, and then they're away from their family. Um, so, however we can best support. But yeah, it's really about, educating the community at large about
Yeah.
our special needs families and their needs and how to best support them. And then just giving these events, to the
Hmm.
families so that they can thrive and then they can feel hope and they
Hmm.
can connect and they can, rely on each other and rely on a community that is willing to support them. So it just boils down to connection.
It
And
really does, Cheryl. And what you're doing really supports that tagline that I use all the time in my show. And that is, in the world of special needs, we all need each other.
that's